We will continue the course on the themes of the doctrine, focusing on two giant pillars, the why and the wherefore of Cafh. We have seen the reunion of souls, and now we're going to think about the mystical body. These topics were not chosen in a hurry or merely to fill a space. We consider them essential for the moment that Cafh and humanity have been through, in which we talk about love, empathy, integration, compassion, and often fail to solve very simple everyday issues in our relationships. We understand the human being as fundamentally relational. Therefore, unless we learn to navigate and resolve our differences, any conception of spiritual life remains poor and incomplete. Viktor Frankl said in an interview shortly before he passed away, "What is at stake is that we need learning to see the human in the human being, and that we do not forget to see it." Then he insists, until the end, until the last breath. And even in an individual with mental illness, or in an individual who has long fallen into crime, the human is always there. In this brief text, we hear the voice of the reflective professional, along with the wisdom of the man preparing for death and knowing the essentials of the human soul. And why do we say that the reunion of souls and the mystical body are pillars of Caph's raison d'etre? Because they are the sustenance of the power of Cafh for the good of the world. Understanding, committing to, and living these two ideas in each of us leads to open ourselves to a body consciousness that is not what could be called a collective consciousness, but that manifests itself as the consciousness of being responsible for oneself, for the being of the other, and for the being of the group. Viktor Frankl also said, "There are people who every day tear a day's leaf out of the calendar and see with melancholy how the calendar is getting thinner. But there's also another type of person, the one who tears out the same sheet and makes notes on his back." And in conclusion, he says that this is what older people like him do, write life as an incessant and finite note. Each one will know what legacy they leave for those to come. Now we can begin to speak of the mystical body as an entity or living being, not physical, but arising and forming with the inner force of the reunion of souls of Cafh, which constitute the magnetic body. We speak of the strengths generated by the aspiration to union with the divine, and by the determination to live renunciation as an answer and solution to human challenges. Similar souls attract each other and generate a field of force enriched by the awareness of their call to the divine, to the infinite unknown, and to the path of renunciation as the only one to follow to reach the one that called them from eternity. This magnetic force is projected onto thoughts and understandings arising from their experiences, which are then transformed into new understandings. They are the ones that generate the mental body, the expression of the idea of Cafh in the life of sons and daughters. This magnetic force, generated by the determination to live renunciations as a path to eternal union, and the mental body, defined as the way of thinking and understanding existence, lead us to the reunion of souls, which concretizes on earth the possibility of being and living as a spiritual body, which represents a human group that witnesses the existence of another dimension and assumes all the vicissitudes of existence on earth without forgetting its human condition and possibility, and keeping in mind what transcends it, the known and the eternal. What is the scope of the mystical body? It extends beyond the earthly plane, composed of both people living on earth and souls inhabiting the astral world. It is consolidated by the union of the bodies of fire of the sons and daughters, forming an indissoluble mystical current. Here we can see reflected the character of the doctrine, the freedom of renunciation embraced as a path, the breadth that opens to all souls who yearn to unfold themselves beyond their characteristics, cultural conditions, and personal history, that compromises the integrality of each one's being, body, mind, feelings, and spirit, that is flexible due to its dynamic of permanent currentness, and this allows each soul to expand and mature its discernments to apply it to live in renunciation through taking and letting go, receiving and offering, as the very breath of the universe is like. In other words, the mystical body is a living being, a dynamic architecture that becomes a message and can change the world. Like a system, human, organizational, or aesthetic, there is one point that does not make noise, a nucleus that does not need to impose itself because it already knows who it is. There, in this minimum circle, the intention is condensed, the silent compass that guides every gesture, every decision, every way of living. From this center emerges a field, the irid. It is not visible, but it organizes. It's not rigid, but it sustains. It develops like a current that, once launched, travels through the cosmos, circles, returns, and renews itself. A continuous movement that defines how a being or a group or a team relates to the world and the universe. It generates attraction, it invokes. This is what draws people in without anyone having to call them. This is where they are important, the tone of voice, the way of looking, the coherence, the spoken language, and the language that is not spoken in words, but that is instantly recognizable. There's also the discernment that cares, filters, and prevents the system from being diluted, impoverished, and diverted from the fundamental purpose. Discernment is necessary for the health and strength of the mystical body and requires an updated awareness of the spiritual mission we embrace and expand on earth. It is an attentive care of what we give and receive. And between the magnetic force and the mental processes, there is resonance. That space where two fields meet without invading each other, where flow, co-creation, and synchrony appear. Resonance is the place where the system ceases to be just itself and becomes a relationship, allowing us to understand that what really sustains the mystical body are not the big decisions, but the small gestures, minute by minute, the action of each moment, the little dots that orbit the field, a careful chosen word, a fine-tuning in a document, a look, a smile, a silence that commands, the little thing that unintentionally makes it all work. The mystical body is neither a wall or a magnet. It is an intelligent membrane. It lets in what feeds and lets out what has already completed its cycle. It adapts without losing its essence. It opens without overflowing. It is relational without ceasing to be itself. Thus, the system lives, breathes, renews itself, and becomes a shared environment. And in this balance between organization, method, and mysticism, intention and gesture, limit and openness, the beauty of the spirit merges. That beauty that allows us to recognize what is born in the tiny things and transforms the great ones, and that can only be seen through the eyes of the spirit. We invite you to end this theme with an exercise. In silence, each one should remember a companion who is no longer physically present. Feel how it has influenced your life and be grateful for what you have lived and learned from that soul.